Hey, welcome to Brian for Liberty. Thank you very much for stopping by. Let me get my headphones on. You guys are going to laugh at me. I started recording this and actually had to get up. It's been a while since I put a video out as usual. I started recording this and I actually had to get up and change my shirt because I realized I was wearing the same shirt that I wore last time. And, time lapse video. I just don't want people thinking I only have one shirt. I'm always wearing the same thing. So I had to change my shirt. This is my Old Man's Club shirt. As you can see, Old Man's Club. That's me. I'm an old man apparently. I ran across a couple of articles a couple of days ago I wanted to talk about, and just really kind of illustrates a pretty powerful point for me. I was listening to the news and on the way home today, or not the news, I'm sorry, I was listening to another podcast I like, and they were talking about AOC was talking about the dismissal of Illhan Omar from her committee position. That's kind of been big news. And of course, AOC comes out and she's screaming about how this is an attack on women of color. And it just blows my mind that that's the only possible reason that a Republican House would oust a relatively far to the left congressperson from a committee position is because they don't like women of color. I think and I don't understand how they keep getting away with that. I don't understand how it's okay, how we keep falling for it, and how we're allowing it to bully us into submission. And I'm not a conservative or a Republican, but it's not just, it's everybody. They're bullying everybody into silence. I honestly can't think that an intelligent Democrat, an intelligent thinking Democrat listens to this nonstop. The only reason bad things happen is because of racism or sexism or xenophobia or being transphobic. That's the only reason bad things happen. The only excuse for disagreeing with me is because you're hateful, which in and of itself, by the way, which saying that is hateful, first of all, but that anybody who's a thinking person can't look at that and go, okay, well, obviously, the reason that she's being dismissed is she's a far left Democrat in a Republican House. And so they're taking advantage of the fact that they're in power. And they're removing somebody who's very much ideologically opposed to who they are. It seems relatively simple. It seems like reasonable Democrats should be able to laugh an AOC off the stage for saying something like that. But that's not what happens. Everybody just jumps on board. And you look at a guy like frickin' Bill Maher somehow becoming a hero to the right because he's one of the few Democrats, one of the few liberals who, from an economic perspective, I would disagree with him on everything, but he's one of the few liberal that you feel like, I think he's nuts. I don't agree with his worldview or his economic theory, but I feel like I could sit down and have an honest exchange of ideas with this person at the very least, as opposed to this insane nonstop beating the drum of hate. And the worst part of it for me is that you're really just victimizing the people you're claiming to want to help over and over again. I've pounded this message home. I've said it 1,000 times. If you keep telling a certain group of people that everybody else in the world hates them, you're literally hurting them. You're literally damaging their psyche. And you're just going to keep doing it. And you're doing it only because it makes you feel good. You're not doing it to help anybody. Your only excuse for doing that is because it makes you feel good. It's sad and it's scary because there's an authoritarian bent to it of being able to just drown out the opposition, be completely drown out anybody who disagrees with you because you have the power of hate on your side. It's okay to hate these people. And heaven forbid I disagree with you, because if I do, then you can lump me into this group of people and go, well, you're just hateful and horrible. And that to me is very scary. And look, I lean to the right. I've said it. I'll say it every time. I'm a libertarian who leans to the right. That's it. It's not a secret. I don't make a secret of where I am. I'm political. That's what I'm doing here. And so I do lean to the right. And so I'm more critical of the left. But I know there's an authoritarian bent on the left side right now that is insanely intolerant of any dissenting opinion, and anything that they don't like needs not just to be argued, but needs to be silenced and shut down. And that is, man, that's scary stuff. So I got these two news stories here. I'm just going to hit them real quick. And I'm not even going to get into my personal view on these things. I've expressed it in other places, including TikTok. If you want to get on there and it comes to this kind of stuff, feel free to go take a look at it. I'm at Brian for Liberty on TikTok as well. But let me just bring this first story up here. So let's see. Language is important, and I think the left is getting really good at using language. So I'm going to bring this story up. Utah becomes the first state in 2023 to ban gender-affirming care for transgender minors. So let me start we got to unpack this language, I think. It's gender-affirming health care. So it's obviously, we're painting this as in the most positive. We're using language to paint gender-affirming care for minors in the most positive light that we possibly can. We're using the right words to make sure that we view this as an incredibly, incredibly positive thing. The state's Republican-dominated legislature fast-tracked the bill which prohibits transgender surgery for those under the age of 18 and bars hormone treatments for minors who have not yet been diagnosed with gender dysphoria. So let's just, we're not allowing 18-year-olds in this country, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. We're not allowing those people, 18, 19, 20, to buy alcohol. That's too big of a decision for a 20-year-old to make. We're not allowing them to buy cigarettes. That's too big of a decision to allow someone that age to make. We can't let them make that decision. But it is what? Look at the sign here. Stop killing trans kids. What? You're telling me that a 15, 16, even 17-year-old really gender affirming really should, is it completely unreasonable? Is it unreasonable to say, wait a minute, let's just pump the brakes a little bit here and let's make sure they get good clinical help, they get good mental health care. Let's make sure they have access to that. Let's make sure that they're seeing psychologists, not just gender-affirming psychologists, but psychologists. Let's get multiple opinions, right? Because it says right in the article, who have not yet been diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Are we opposed to a bill that says we're not going to let a 16-year-old have a gender reassignment surgery until they have a diagnosis of actual gender dysphoria? Are we not even, is it wrong? We can't even wait for the diagnosis before we have the surgery? This is right below it. Stop killing trans kids. So far this year, at least 10 other states have introduced bills targeting such health care access for transgender and gender nonconforming people. Now they're saying people, but this Utah bill is for children. This is for kids. You understand? So in 2022, at least 15 states restricted access to gender-affirming care or considered health laws that would do so. What is gender-affirming care? And then it goes on to define it. It's highly individualized. Care can involve social transitions as well, such as a new name, a new haircut, new clothing, different pronouns. Okay, fine. All of that are reversible. None of which are irreversible, he said, right? Mentally, the idea that there's not a mental issue here, that there's not something going on that there's not the risk of harm long term if there's not something else underlying this identifying with a different gender. I think that's silly. I think that we got to be very careful here, right? Supporters of gender affirming care bans often claim they are saving young people from regret later in life. I think is that not a valid? I think that's a valid statement. We don't let these kids buy cigarettes. You understand? And we don't do that because cigarettes are bad for you, which of course they are. The reason we don't allow a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old to buy a cigarette or to buy a pack of cigarettes is because we don't think that they have the mental maturity to make that decision yet. Cigarettes are on the market. You could buy them, even though they're harmful, but we want to make sure that you're an adult and you're making this decision, an informed adult decision about doing something harmful that could have irreversible effects, like smoking. Shouldn't we take the same caution here? And even if you don't think we should take the same caution, even if you disagree, isn't it reasonable to have the conversation? Isn't it reasonable to say, look, I don't know that this is a great idea. I think it's worthy of conversation. So recent polls by the Trevor Project, which provides crisis and suicide prevention services for LGBTQ people under 25, show the damaging toll the bills can have. 85% of trans and non-binary youth say recent debates about state laws restricting their rights have negatively impacted their mental health. Proposed bills that would ban doctors from prescribing gender-affirming medical care make 73% of transgender and non-binary youth feel angry, 57% sad, 47% stressed, and 40% scared. Well, I mean, we see how stupid this survey is, right? I mean, of course, that's going to be the response, of course. And I can only imagine how those questions are asked, but of course, that's going to be the response. And I'm not saying that those feelings aren't genuine. I'm just saying, well, of course, that's going to be the response. So then we're going to go here. It's not about the kids. GOP push family-friendly version of anti-LGBTQ agenda. So this is where this thing really starts to bother me. Labeling it as anti-LGBTQ is the same thing as the anti-vax label, right? I didn't get vaccinated. That didn't make me anti-vax. It's not, everything is, I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to LGBTQ people. I'm not anti-LGBTQ. I think that an LGBTQ, I'm a libertarian. Human rights are human rights. That's it. I believe in individual rights. I believe that we should all be treated exactly the same under the law. At the end. That's it. No special rights, no restrictions. Everybody should be treated the same under the law. Children are minors, so passing laws to protect minors from potentially harmful things that have long-term consequences is reasonable. We've already decided as a society that we need to protect children. That's why alcohol, that's why we have age of consent laws. That's why we don't let them buy cigarettes. That's why 14-year-olds can't get conscripted into the military service. We've decided as a society that we should protect children. That's a pretty solid, pretty good decision. So saying that that this is family friendly, it's anti-LGBTQ. No, we are living in a new era. And when it comes to this kind of stuff, it's okay to say, well, let's just pump the brakes a minute and see if we're handling this properly. Let's see if we're doing this the right way. And this is the kind of thing that, and I would wager, and I don't know, like all of you out there, by the way, a lot of homosexuals, or I don't know any trans people personally, and I don't know a lot of homosexuals. But I'm willing to wager that most of them don't view saying we're not going to allow for a child to have gender reassignment surgery before they've had a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. I don't think most of them, and it's a guess on my part, but I would guess most of them would go, yeah, that's not unreasonable, and it certainly isn't anti-LGBTQ, and I really don't like the media tying my movement for equal rights up with this other thing. That's just what I'm saying. And this goes back to, you're hurting the people that you are claiming to want to help by pushing this narrative that here's a reasonable argument I'm making about the cautions we should be taking in regards to children and the direction this trans conversation is going. And these are some reasonable things I think we should put in place to make sure that we're doing the right things by our children. And saying, well, if you think that, then you're anti-LGBTQ and your heart's full of hate. That's not the same thing. That's not accurate. And so that really bothers me, I guess, and I just wanted to jump on here and put that out. And what's interesting is I don't think anything in this video would make you think of me as an anti-LGBTQ person, but certainly if this video were viewed enough, and I'm a very small creator, so that's probably not going to happen, but if this video were viewed enough times, I'm sure in the comment section, I would get a lot of hate and vitriol about being anti-LGBTQ, because I have expressed this opinion about exercising caution when it comes to children on TikTok, and have been roasted as a transphobe, as anti-LGBTQ. And I'm like, that's not the case at all. But this is the world we live in. And I think no matter what side of the political aisle you reside on, I think it's somewhat important for us to stand up and go, you know what? Hey, I disagree with what that guy's saying, but that doesn't mean he's a hateful bigot. He's allowed to disagree with me without having this label attached to him, because it gets really dangerous to start throwing those labels around. Wanted to come on here and say that. I probably took a little bit longer. I know I took a little bit longer to get it out than I wanted to, but it's been a hot minute since I put a video up. So I hope you enjoy. And if you stuck around for the whole thing, I certainly do appreciate it. Please like and share the content if you enjoyed it. And we'll catch you guys next time.